Okay, so not only did we just get a new Tron Ares trailer, which is amazing by the way, but Nine Inch Nails also released a brand new single that's going to be featured in Tron Ares. Now this is actually the second trailer for Tron Ares, and I thought I was already at my maximum hype level with that first trailer, but this new trailer blew all of that out of the water. Alright, so for the past while, we've actually been talking a lot about how Tron Ares is going to be featured at San Diego Comic-Con, and even the other day, Kevin Smith was talking about how he would be hosting that panel, and that he also saw a lot of footage from Tron Ares that's going to be featured at that panel. And from what he said, he's very optimistic about the film, but it kind of just made me assume that we would actually see the trailer at San Diego Comic-Con. So when they dropped the trailer today, it was genuinely unexpected. I never even thought it was a possibility. But it's out now, and I'm going to be going over this entire trailer and breaking it down for you guys. And right off the bat, we see one of those giant recognizers that we saw in the first trailer. We also see a couple of light jets, which are brand new models, but they also do look pretty reminiscent of the Tron Catalyst light jets. And then we also have a bit more of extended footage from the last trailer of what looks to be a recognizer going through Center City. You can even see that the recognizer is going past Encom Tower because the Encom logo is on one of the computer monitors inside of the building right here. And right after this, we get the Tron Ares Disney intro, which is absolutely amazing. And it is pretty much the exact same intro as Tron Legacy, just recolored red to match the vibe of Tron Ares. They did add a few effects here and there, but relatively it is the same, and I'm pretty happy about that. Next up, we have what I believe to be the Encom
Com 511 computer.
Or at least it used to be. It's definitely been updated since then. And once we go inside of this computer, we see a brand new grid which we've never seen before. It looks a lot more like Flynn's grid from Tron Legacy, especially considering that it has that blue color scheme that we're so used to. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is actually a new Encom grid. And that's just because this grid seems to be in what I believe is a new version of the Encom 511 computer. Now I'm going to assume that this grid was also partially made by Sam Flynn, especially because he's involved with Encom. And at the end of Tron Legacy, Sam pretty much had the entire grid on his drive. And somehow there's also sunlight on this grid, and I have no idea how this is possible, but I hope they explain this a little bit more in the film. And as you may know, there has never been sunlight on any grid in the Tron franchise until now. Now earlier I was talking to my friend the D-Res Cycle about some possible theories in this trailer, and he mentioned a really cool theory as to why there's a sun in this grid. Now you may remember in Tron Legacy when Sam and Cora are on the Solar Sailor, and Cora starts talking to Sam about how she wants to see the sun, and this leads to her asking Sam if he can describe the sun for her, to which he says,
"Warm, radiant, beautiful."
So if Sam really did help create this new grid that we see here, then maybe Cora was Sam's motivation for having a sun in the grid. And I think that's such a cool theory. But seeing the sunlight in this grid reminded me of a similar photo that we got from Empire Magazine a couple weeks back. Now when I first saw this photo, I thought it was Ares and Athena trying to get into the real world, and that this blue lighting or force field we can see in front of them was actually the portal, but I was completely wrong. Now in the main city for this grid, we can see a giant force field surrounding one of the buildings in the middle of the city, and I think that's what Ares and Athena were trying to get to in this photo. And it makes even more sense when you see more programs behind Ares and Athena here, and then you see multiple programs invading this new grid. I also noticed that this city off in the distance looks very similar to Tron City from Flynn's grid in Tron Legacy, so maybe there's a possibility that it made a return. Moving on, we see about 12 different lasers digitizing us to what I can only assume to be Ares. The actual standout for me here is the actual thing digitizing Ares. It's almost like a 3D printer, but for digitization. Then we can see Julian Dillinger actually pitching Ares to the military. And as Julian actually does this, he's showing off the capabilities of Ares, such as his strength. And this is where we actually see Ares and a bunch of other programs from the Dillinger grid attacking programs from what seems like the new Encom grid. And the reason I think this is because, well, first of all, you have that blue circuitry, and somehow we have that sunlight that we saw earlier. Now you may actually notice that Ares is the only one with a triangular disc. Now originally it was kind of thought that if you're in the Dillinger grid then you get a triangular disc, but it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore. It seems like it's all based on rank, and considering that Ares is master control of the Dillinger grid, it makes sense that he would get one. To showcase more of his strength, we also see Ares grab someone and lift them off the ground by their neck right after being digitized. We also see Ares drive down an alley in a light cycle, which is so cool. I don't think seeing light cycles in the real world will ever get old. Moving on, during this whole meeting with the military, we actually see Ares' point of view, where we get to see his HUD. Now on this HUD, it showcases details such as names and ranks, but on the right here, I actually noticed something pretty interesting. It says time to D-resolution, 27 minutes and 24 seconds remaining. I personally believe that this timer is actually a time limit for how long Ares can be out in the real world to complete a mission. So if he doesn't complete his mission in those 30 minutes, he will be de-resed. Now this time limit also might be just for whenever he's out in the real world, not just for missions. Now I assume that this is like like a safeguard because when you're working with powerful programs or robots or anything of that nature, the last thing you would want is for them to escape. Right after this, Julian Dillinger mentions that if Ares somehow becomes de-resed in battle, he will simply make them another Ares. Personally, I think this is such a cool idea because we've never had a program that could just be digitized again after being de-resed in the Tron franchise ever. Man, I wish we had that for Ram. No, but seriously, Ares is going to be so overpowered in this movie, man. And not only does Ares have access to this ability, but we also see Athena using this. Now, this begs the question, can any program from the Dillinger Grid redigitize themselves? If so, let's be real here, Center City and the world as we know it is pretty much doomed. Moving on, now we also hear a bit of dialogue between Elizabeth and Julian Dillinger.
You think you're in control of this? You're not.
As we can hear, she's pretty much not on board with the whole bringing programs into the real world idea. And you know what? I'm really happy for that because it's good to have a voice of reason, especially in the Dillinger family, you know? It shows that not every Dillinger is horrible. Now, the reason I want to bring her up a little bit here is because I'm wondering how exactly she's related to Julian Dillinger. We know that Julian Dillinger is her son. That was confirmed by Empire magazine a couple weeks ago. But some people think that she's actually married to Ed Dillinger Jr. or even Ed Dillinger Sr. It's pretty much anyone's guess because there hasn't been much word on that. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this is actually Ed Dillinger Sr.'s wife, which would make Julian Dillinger and Ed Dillinger Jr. brothers. Right after this, we see that amazing shot from the first trailer of that cop car getting cut in half by a light cycle, which never gets old in my opinion. We also see Athena right here with a circular disc, and this proves what I said earlier, that Ares is the only one on the Dillinger Grid with a triangular disc. And the reason this proves what I said is because Athena is actually second in command of the Dillinger Grid. So if Athena doesn't have a triangular disc, that means no one else has one besides Ares. Tron Ares is also using Ducati bikes just like in Tron Legacy, and here we actually see Eve Kim taking off the tarp of a Ducati bike. Now, many people have been theorizing that this bike is actually Kevin Flynn or Sam Flynn's bike, or at the very least a brand new bike that Sam owns, but I do believe this is really Eve Kim's bike, and that is purely because we commonly see Eve Kim wearing the same Ducati jacket. We see it here of course, and then we can also see it in this Empire magazine photo released a couple weeks back. And to be honest, I don't think she would be wearing Ducati merch if the bike wasn't hers. Not saying that you can't wear Ducati merch if you don't own a Ducati bike, but I think in this case that is her bike. Now moving on, we see this badass slow motion moment where a program is rezzing in a light jet. I seriously gotta tell you guys, I am loving this new light jet design. It might not even be a light jet to be honest because of just how different it is, but even then I love this design. Now something that really caught my attention with this trailer is when we can see Ares going through what seems to be pictures of humans from the real world, or these could even be memories. Now originally I thought the photo in front of Ares was actually young Sam from Tron Legacy when he's learning to ride his bike, but as you can see the photos don't really match up. And then there's another photo here that I saw many people theorize is Kevin Flynn when he's giving his speech in Tron Legacy.
Is our destiny.
But as you can see, that photo doesn't really match up either. And even if he does look a little similar, let's be real here, it's because of the CGI face. This is then when we get to see a better look at what I believe to be the new NCOM grid. We also get a better look at the actual programs in this grid, and you can see how they're so inspired by Tron Legacy. And then of course, Athena pulls a Rinzler by flipping over a disc like a badass. And this brings us to one of the highlights of the entire trailer for me personally, where we get to see the return of the old system from Tron 1982.
A malfunctioning program who wants to live. Why is that? It's just a feeling. Fascinating.
Before we dive into Easter eggs and specifics of this part of the trailer, I want to talk about the actual look of the old system. First of all, this all looks phenomenal. Straight down to the actual colors of the environment, the circuitry patterns, and of course we also got that color grading. You can see that even all of the color is taken out of Ares' face, just like the original Tron. And this is just so freaking cool. The amount of details that were put into this grid to make it as accurate as possible to the original Tron is just insane. Now I believe this scene takes place at an IO tower from the original Tron, and that's because we can see one of those beams of light coming up out of the ground just like in the original Tron. And I don't know why it's taken me so long to get to this, but yes, Kevin Flynn is also in this scene and he actually looks like he's a hologram. Now I do still believe that this is actually Kevin Flynn and Clue merged into one person, because when Ares answers the question that Kevin Flynn has, he just says,
Fascinating.
and to be honest, I don't think that's a typical answer from Kevin Flynn. I feel like Flynn would react a little bit more to this information since it's literally a program that wants to live out in the real world. Or to expand a little bit more on this, Ares also wants free will. So I actually think this is Clue talking, and that's because as you may know, Clue is just obsessed with perfection. So of course he finds it fascinating why a program would want to ignore their programming and just have free will. although I also could be digging a little bit too deep into this. In my last video, I explained that the old system and Flynn's grid from Tron Legacy may be merging, but now that it's pretty much confirmed to just be the old system, I don't know how Kevin or maybe even Clue are in this system. Although I think another possible theory is the fact that this might be Kevin Flynn as the Master Control program. At the end of the original Tron, Kevin Flynn actually jumps into the Master Control program to save the old system. Now when Flynn jumped into the Master Control program, he was stuck inside for about 30 seconds until Tron destroyed the MCP with his disc. Now right after this, Flynn was brought back to the real world, but I'm wondering if some parts of Flynn never left the old system. I think that part of Flynn was actually absorbed by the Master Control program, or maybe even the old system itself. Either way, I think part of Flynn actually stayed in the old system. Another reason I like this theory so much is because when you actually merge both colors of the Master Control program, who is red, and Kevin Flynn, who is blue, you get purple. And of course, as we know by now, Kevin Flynn's new circuitry is actually purple. Now Flynn also has a new disc that we've never seen before, and this is one of the things that caught my eye immediately. Now the disc looks absolutely amazing in my opinion, but it's without a doubt different from what we've seen before. When I first saw it, I thought it was like a bridge between the disc from the original Tron and the disc from Tron Legacy. And I believe that the reason that Flynn has a disc that's different from the original Tron is for the same reason that Ares is the only program in the Dillinger grid with a triangular disc. They are both master control of their respective grids. Moving on, we see this amazing scene of what looks to be an F-35 fighter jet being trapped between 4 different light ribbons and eventually having its wings cut off. And I know a lot of people didn't really want the next chapter of the Tron franchise to take place in the real world, but if it didn't happen, we would never get amazing sequences like this. Now, as this is all happening, you can actually see a little fun Easter egg down here on the building. It says Clue. It's a little too blurry to see what it says underneath Clue, but it looks like it could possibly be Clue Cargo. Not sure though, it's pretty hard to tell. Anyways, I actually found that from Adam the Boyd on Reddit, so credit to him for finding it first. We also see Ares again just running through a window, but I think there's more than meets the eye here. I think he's running through a window at Flynn's arcade. And this is just because we can see multiple arcade cabinets in this building, including a Space Paranoids arcade cabinet. And let's be real here, where else would you see a Space Paranoids arcade cabinet than Flynn's arcade? And lastly, this trailer ends off with a bunch of missiles firing off from a giant recognizer. I love how a lot of the time, the stuff that is so dangerous in this franchise is also so beautiful. Now, one actor that we haven't seen at all in any Tron Ares marketing or any of the trailers, and was missing from this trailer too, was actually Cameron Monaghan's character. Now, we could get more information on his character at San Diego Comic-Con. Most people, myself included, actually thought that the trailer was going to release at the San Diego Comic-Con panel, and since the trailer released a week ahead of the panel, we're pretty much going in blind here. Anything could really happen at that panel, so I would not be surprised if they reveal his character there. I also want to briefly mention the 9 Inch Nails single that dropped that will be featured in Tron Ares, and I've seen a lot of mixed reactions about this, especially the fact that lyrics are in the single. I don't really mind the lyrics because I highly doubt they will actually be in the film except for maybe the credits. If you haven't heard the single, definitely go check it out, but my opinion of it is that while it's definitely a lot edgier than the Tron Legacy soundtrack, I think that's the right direction for this soundtrack because Tron Ares is an invasion film of the real world. So I think hearing a darker, edgier, and grittier soundtrack is perfect, but I like that this single doesn't stray too far from what makes Tron, Tron. But anyways, this trailer has made me so excited for the future of the Tron franchise, and I want to hear what you guys think about this too. I always love to see your thoughts and opinions on what we see here on the channel. But anyways, that's going to be all from me today, and I'll see you guys next time. End of line.